I'm Roddy Clarke. I'm a writer and a consultant and a creative director, and I focus a lot of my work on the social and environmental impacts of design and what that really means for consumers today, and especially businesses as well, and how they can navigate their way through uncertain times, and how they can connect with consumers and communicate things in the right way. And I think as we look today I want to talk about purpose, and I think it's a really, really important topic as we come out and into a post-pandemic world. 2020 has been a year like no other, and I think for many of us we've found a renewed sense of purpose, and I think that has affected everything that we do in our lives, from our lifestyles, from our personal lives to our businesses. Even if we're a business owner or an employee, we've all found and seen what a renewed sense of purpose can bring. And when we're posed with the question, is a sustainable future still within reach? I think we have to remain positive despite of the pandemic causing certain setbacks, and rightly so, as we've responded to a crisis. But I think we have to remain immensely positive, because without hope we have nothing. And I just want to focus on 2020, and I think there's many trends that we've seen, and one of the main trends is how we've seen humanity quickly adapting to situations and also responding to instruction. And I think when we're looking at the climate crisis, which we're in the middle of, as well as the pandemic, I think if we responded to the climate crisis with the same urgency as we've responded to the pandemic, solutions would be reached at a quicker pace. And if you look at the impacts of what have happened during lockdown, carbon emissions did decrease, maybe not as much as we would have liked them to, but there was a movement that was a positive movement. And however, since lockdown, they are increasing again. So we need to relook at that. We need to constantly be aware of the impact that we're all having as individuals and as businesses. And obviously, looking back over 2020, the economic impact has been devastating. And, environmental sustainability, social sustainability, none of that happens if the economy isn't doing well. So we have to work out how we're going to harmonize all of these facets together. And the communities that have suffered most from the pandemic are also those that have suffered most from climate change. So it's looking at ways that how we bring everyone up together, not just our own communities, but how they play a presence and a role as part of a global community. And in response to the pandemic, we've seen rises in medical waste, the use of single-use PPE, which has caused its own waste issue. So they're challenges we're currently facing at the moment. And there's certain issues that are arising, but through it all, and I think this is what I want to focus on, is that what's emerged is that there's been a strong sense of community. And when you have a community that comes together, that's when real change can take place. And in fighting this climate crisis that we're in the middle of, that's what needs to happen. And also, the pandemic has made us realize, which I think is more important than ever, is how entwined we are with the environment around us. So when we look at the decade ahead, the 20s are set to be one of the most pivotal decades that we have ever known. And for generations to come, what we do in the next 10 years will shape the world for the upcoming generations for years and years to come. So it's important to understand the urgency, but not to get bogged down by it. And I think as we recover and as we work on the economy, we must base our recovery on green strategies and on circular mindsets. We can't build back the economy that we had before because it wasn't working. And the pandemic has shown the flaws in that economy. So we now have a window of opportunity, and we have a chance to build back something that works for not only humanity, but also the environment. And the positive thing is that we as humans have the solutions. There's so many creative minds out there. There's so many visionaries and there's so many change makers, and we can all be one in our own small way. And we do have the knowledge, and we've got this window of time where we can still make a change. And by working closely together, I think that is the crux of how we will reach a brighter and better future ahead. One of the main topics that I focus on in my work is how consumers can navigate their way through a world of mass production, and especially with the rise of the high street through the 90s and the early 2000s, we've become used to, products being thrown at us day after day, trends and fashions, and that's become the norm. But now I think we've realized the damage that our individual actions is creating. And I think what's key is understanding the impact behind every purchase that you make or every investment that you make, the brand that you're buying into. Have you done your research? And I think it's all about taking ownership and taking responsibility from that perspective. And, we're part of a wider community. So knowing that your individual actions, however small they may seem, because every day I hear people say, well, my actions aren't going to make much of a difference. And that could not be further from the truth, because your actions may inspire one other person to make a change. And that's more important than anything. And I think if we combine our individual actions and look at them as a whole, think of the power that has, and that's how we're going to influence governments. That's how we're going to influence large corporations and organizations to change. And it's the power in consumer action that we often, underestimate. And coming on to this sense of purpose that I touched on at the beginning, I speak with a lot of emerging designers and small businesses that are trying to navigate their way in the early stages of their careers and the early stages of business. And my strongest message is, if you don't understand your sense of purpose, or if you don't have a clear sense of purpose, really question why you're starting or what you're doing. Because we're in a position where we need businesses and we need designers to actually bring something that's going to make a positive impact in the world today. And we've got enough pieces of furniture out there, we've got enough clothing out there. We don't need more things. What we need is new ways of doing things, and we need new systems, and we need new ways of making things and closing the loop on linear production systems. And all of this, we have the power, especially within the design world, which influences every other industry in the world. We have the power to create those changes and to come up with those solutions. And I think that strong commitment to change and disruption will stand you in good stead for years to come. And that's how you future-proof your business. That's how you become relevant to a future generation that might not even be born yet, because you're adaptable and you're ready to change. And I think that's what we've seen through this last year, is the businesses that have stayed strong are the ones that have been quick to adapt and ready to adapt, and have understood the needs of the community around them, knowing that they need to put something back into the world. And it's never been more pressing as businesses to look after your people and the well-being of your people, and creating an environment that not only protects them, but also protects the world that they live in as well. And that's, the values of community and contribution and commitment. That's what we need to take forward as businesses going forward into the next decade. I get asked a lot as a journalist how to talk about sustainability, and sustainability as a term has been massively overused. And I think with the abundance of greenwashing that we've seen over the past years, it's been lost in translation. And especially in 2020, I think the term sustainability has almost taken on a new meaning. And it's a very individual term, and it has so many facets, and it means something completely different for every single person. I think it's understanding how to communicate with your audience in a very clear, honest, and transparent way so that they can understand where you're at and what your viewpoints are and how you want to change. And it's not being afraid to expose yourself. I think many businesses put off the fact of talking about things because they're afraid that they might be seen as not sustainable or as not having the right passion. But I think what's clear is that no one is 100% sustainable. It's not a destination. It's a journey that we're on, and it's a point you're never going to reach because the world is constantly changing and we're adapting to it as we go. So it's about explaining to your community that journey and inviting them to be a part of it, and really helping them in a clear and concise way to understand that journey that you're on. You hear terms such as recyclable or compostable, and in essence, they mean nothing if the systems aren't in place to recycle that certain material or to compost that material. So it's understanding how to be more open and transparent and actually taking responsibility for the end of life for the products that you're producing. And as I said at the start, sustainability is really an individual process, and it starts here. It's less of pointing the finger at others and shaming people, and I think it's become such a contentious issue over the past years as well. And now it's time to look inwards and focus on what I can do. I'm, as a business owner, as a consumer, or as a designer, what power do I have? Who can I influence? And will my changes, will they inspire other people to change? And yes, they will. And I think just to close on the fact that we have this window of opportunity, and it's about acting now, remaining immensely hopeful and positive, and taking individual accountability. And that's what matters going forward in creating a sustainable future.